All right, so if you're here, you're probably getting ready for a Chapter 8 test retake, and to do that, we're going to go through the Chapter 8 test review together today. Let's start with question number 1 and 2. We'll do those together. The first thing that I am asked to find here in question number 1 is the vertex. Now, if you recall, the vertex of a parabola is the highest or lowest point. If I look at this parabola right here, I should notice that I have a highest point, right? And I know that every point can be written as an xy value. So if I want to write my vertex right here, it's going to be written as something, comma, something else. Recall when we're finding points, we have to go left and right and then up and down. So if I look at this one, I move 0 to the left or right, but then have to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. That means that my vertex is at the point 0, 4. The next thing that we're asked to find is this thing called the axis of symmetry. Now, if you can imagine our vertex is at the center of our graph. And so if I draw a line, a vertical line going through the vertex, it's going to cut my graph into two symmetrical halves. And so that's why it's called the axis of symmetry. We always write this as an equation, so it's always going to be x equals a number. And that number is going to be whatever your x coordinate in your point is. So in this case, it's going to be x equals 0. The domain of your graph, so you can think of domain as how far to the left and right does your graph go. Now, if I take a look at my graph right here, I should notice that it's going to extend on forever. So this graph is going to keep going this way, and it's going to keep going this way forever and ever and ever. So what that means is that my graph is going to go to the left and right infinitely, meaning that any real number on the number line is going to be included in my domain. So we can say that the domain of this graph is all real numbers. We use this symbol, it looks like two L's, and then you make it into an R to refer to domain. And fun fact, or not really fun fact, but domain is always written in terms of x. So technically, we could also write it this way. We could say x is equal to all real numbers. Okay. The range of my graph here, we have to be a little bit more careful with. So I want us to go back to my parabola. If I notice my vertex is at this, we said that the vertex was at this point right here. Notice how the graph stops at the vertex. Okay. So it's never going to go above that point, meaning that my up and down values in my graph, because remember, domain is left and right, range is up and down. The highest my graph can go is 4, but it can be anything less than 4. So I would write this way. The range is always written in terms of y. Y can be anything that is less than or equal to my highest point, which is 4. And that's my range. Zeros, we also call those solutions or roots sometimes, it depends on the context, are where my parabola crosses the x-axis. And so if I look at this problem, I should notice it crosses twice, once here and once here. And if I look, that's at -2 and +2. And so we can write it like this: x equals -2 and x equals +2 are my two zeros. The last thing we're going to talk about is when the function is increasing and decreasing. And to do this, I have to go back to my axis of symmetry. Pardon me. So the axis of symmetry cuts my graph into two symmetrical halves. If I look, I want to figure out where is my graph increasing, okay? So that means when is my graph going up? If I notice on this one, my graph goes up on the left side of the axis of symmetry, okay? And so we represent this. So we're going to have an x and a 0, just like my axis of symmetry. And my inequality arrow, because it's only on the left side of 0 that it's going up. So my inequality arrow should be pointing to the left, okay? Because it's on the left side. And if I look at the graph, it's decreasing. It's going down on the right side. So I can say that when x is to the right, or when it's greater than 0, it's decreasing. Okay. So let's take a second, pause the video, try out number 2. Okay, now that you've had a chance to try, I'm just going to briefly go over this one. Again, I won't spend too much time since we did a lot on the other one. Your vertex is going to be right here. That's at the point -1, -4. Your axis of symmetry, this line right here, is going to be x equals -1. The domain, again, is going to be all real numbers. Your range, since this one is the lowest point, my graph can be anything above it. Y is going to be everything greater than or equal to -4. And then my 2 zeros are going to be at -3 and 1. It's increasing on the right side, so when x is greater than -1, and decreasing on the left side when x is less than -1. And that is the end of our video for questions 1 and 2. Keep watching through the other videos for the rest of the test review problems.